Welcome to For Good Measure, an interview series celebrating diverse composers and other creative artists, sponsored by a grant from the California Arts Council. I'm Nanette McGuinness, Artistic Executive Director of Ensemble for these times. In this week's episode, we continue our conversation with Hitomi Oba, who we spoke to in December 2023. When you listed the many mentors, and you know that you're going to wake up like at 3 o'clock in the morning and realize the one person you really should have mentioned. But beyond that, when you listed them, it was a pretty wide bunch, but there weren't too many that I caught that looked like you or, were sharing either gender or Asian identity. Would that have been different if you'd had mentors like you?
Yeah, I am so grateful for the mentors I've had. And yeah, the women have been significant. Even as a young person, I think I had a larger share of women, especially in jazz, as educators than a lot of peers. So I'm very thankful for that. There were like maybe a couple mothers, who people who had children while I was studying with them.
Right.
But yeah, definitely, I have never studied with an Asian American mother.
Right.
It's so I definitely would have appreciated having more mentors. I think subconsciously it would have normalized it for me a lot more to think,
Right.
Oh, yeah, of course, this is absolutely something that people do,
Right. I can do it. They do it. I can do it.
Yeah, and not even, mostly subconsciously, I think, right? Just to be like, yeah, this is a normal thing. And I think there would have been times where I would have appreciated being able to ask someone I trusted for, questions and ask them for advice. For sure, there have been a lot of, specific situations where I would have appreciated that, especially as I became an adult, I think. And I also wonder if I had had like a really thoughtful Asian American, composer or saxophonist as a mentor in my youth, maybe I might not have had as many defense mechanisms. And that's not to say that they were against, towards my existing mentors, but just like maybe the landscape would have felt a lot different in general if I had had someone like that. So I might have, like the cultural conditioning, it might have been a little bit different, I think, in terms of how I approached all of these workspaces. Yeah. But also, there's also the thing of it being like, even if there had been someone like that, assuming that this had been one person, who had been an Asian American, woman who was a saxophonist and composer, maybe a mother as well, assuming that there was like maybe one person like that in the landscape, and she was still in the minority, then I'm wondering if in like society's eyes, it would have trivialized my work a little bit and boiled it down to our shared traits. So unless it was much more widespread, so it's like, yes, I had 5 mentors like that, and it was so normal for that to be a thing. If if it'd been just one and I had been her only mentee who looked like her, then any associations from the outside would have been focused on the fact that we were women and that we were Asian American, right? And so I think the token still, it would have been a novelty still. So unfortunately, I think the association might have just like heightened those token attributes, So it's a tough question. Of course, I would have loved to have someone like that, but I think the idea is that it would have been nice for that to be much even more widespread, so that I wasn't the only Asian girl.
Yeah, thank you. Right.
Yeah. There are more and more though. Even as I was in college, I was seeing more people who looked like me, in all of these, fields, especially in the, saxophone playing, improvisational world and playing saxophone. So I'm very encouraged. I have more women in my program at school than ever.
Wow, that's great.
So yeah, it's been good. And recently, and this is like questions coming at a great time because I've been just this half year, I've been involved more with Asian American creative artists. I named some of my mentors, John Jang, Francis Wong, and I've been involved with more. Like my record just came out with Asian American. Thank you, Asian American improv records, which is based in Chicago. So I just flew out to their, do a show there, and I got to meet a lot of people of various disciplines, in the creative Asian American community there.
Oh, cool.
And And I've also had more peers who are mothers now. My generation, I've had more peers,
Right,
So I was
right.
just on a jazz gig. I got to talk about raising toddlers with one of the keyboardists. And these situations have been so nourishing.
Yeah, yeah.
It feels very different. Obviously, I think it's really important to engage with diverse social environments, and to engage with people who are not like me, because it's so important to be a person who can, empathize with different people and
Right.
understand that the world is very diverse. But also being able to talk with people who do share a lot of similar experiences. I think that's what it comes down to, right? It's not just the fact that we look similar, but it's that we have shared experience based on the fact that we look similar. Right.
Right.
Right. So,
Yeah.
or that, in the case of the mother, it's like we have shared experiences, that are very specific to our situations, and circumstances. So, it felt very different. And I felt sense of relief in those situations, which I think is conducive to being creative, right? So I played
Safety.
feeling relief and ease. And I played a free jazz set with these very new people I'd never played with before, but the environment felt so different, and it felt so comfortable. They were all strangers I met for the first time, but it was a new experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
And being able to share experience with other peer mothers, musician mothers, especially, in my workspaces that usually I don't encounter those kind of people, it's been such, there's such a whoosh of relief in those situations too. It really, really helps. And I didn't realize how much, I think conceptually I knew it's I did a Jazz Girls Day a couple years ago, to be girls, playing, in a safe space, improvised music in a safe space around other girls, I knew logically in my head how that could be powerful, but I think I've been experiencing a little bit more firsthand, and being more aware enough to realize my own reactions to those situations more. So it's been, I think there's great importance to that. Yeah.
Maybe affecting you enough that you might try to propagate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Maybe more Jazz Girls Days.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as you were talking.
Yeah.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah. For younger people, especially now that, but so I think it's important to work within a lot of different kinds of workspaces, I think, and social spaces.
Agree that otherwise the unconscious influence is skewed. That's the best way to say it.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to For Good Measure, and a special thank you to our guest Hitomi Oba for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast by clicking on the subscribe button, and support us by sharing it with your friends, posting about it on social media, and leaving us a rating and a review. To learn more about E4TT, our concert season online and in the Bay Area, or to make a tax-deductible donation, please visit us at e4tt.org. This podcast is made possible in part by a grant from the California Arts Council and generous donors like you. For Good Measure is produced by Nanette McGuinness and Ensemble for These Times, and designed by Brennan Stokes, with special thanks to co-producer and audio engineer Stephanie M. Neumann. Remember to keep supporting equity in the arts, and tune in next week for Good Measure.